The blue plasma screens on the observation deck flickered as Wade Anderson stepped into the massive amphitheater, his heart pounding against his ribs. 3,000 alien students from across 17 star systems stared down at him with compound eyes, stalked visual organs, and sensory apparatuses he couldn't begin to comprehend. "Our visiting human specialist has arrived," announced Professor Zilvex, her translucent exoskeleton glinting under the artificial lights of Galactic University's most prestigious xenoanthropology classroom. "Students, please welcome Wade Anderson, Earth's cultural liaison to the Intergalactic Education Council." Wade nodded awkwardly, adjusting the environmental suit that allowed him to breathe in the methane-rich atmosphere. As the only human on a space station orbiting Proxima Centauri, he'd grown accustomed to being a curiosity, but today felt different. He was here to observe the end-of-term presentations, not to be part of them. Professor Zilvex's four arms gestured to the center stage. "As you know, today concludes our semester-long study of predatory evolution across sentient species. Each student will present the hunting methodology that led to their species' rise to sapience." Wade took his seat in the special observation booth, where the air was filtered to Earth standard. He'd been told his role was simply to provide feedback, a formality in the academic exchange program. The booth's glass barrier gave him a perfect view while keeping him safely separated from the alien atmosphere. The first presenter, a Nexelian with a serpentine body and 6 articulated limbs, slithered to center stage. It unfolded what looked like a complex net woven from crystalline fibers. "The Echo Net," it explained through the translator device, "allowed my ancestors to catch flying prey by anticipating their movement patterns through air current analysis. The neural connections in these fibers can predict trajectory with 98% accuracy." Wade watched in fascination as the Nexelian demonstrated, throwing the net, which seemed to adjust mid-flight, curving around an automated drone target. The next student, a bulky Drovian with thick, chitinous plates, presented a hunting spear that could deliver electric shocks. "Our ancestors developed this to hunt in the liquid methane seas of our homeworld," the student explained. "The bioelectric discharge disrupted our prey's nervous systems while protecting us from larger predators." One by one, students displayed increasingly sophisticated hunting tools. A gelatinous Blaxian showed how its ancestors used chemical lures to attract prey. A crystalline Threvan demonstrated a sound-based weapon that could shatter specific molecular bonds. Wade found himself leaning forward, genuinely intrigued. He'd studied xenobiology for years, but seeing these adaptations firsthand was extraordinary. The technologies were elegant solutions to evolutionary challenges, each demonstrating how different environments had shaped intelligence across the galaxy. After 15 presentations, Professor Zilvex turned toward Wade's booth. "And now, as part of our cultural exchange, I've asked our human guest to share Earth's early hunting technology." Wade blinked in surprise. This wasn't on the agenda. He stood awkwardly, touching the communicator at his throat. "I'm sorry, Professor. I wasn't prepared to present. Simply show us what primitive tool helped humans rise to dominance on Earth," she said, her translator rendering her chirps and clicks into English. "We understand humans were physically weaker than many competitors on your planet. What hunting adaptation proved decisive?" Wade hesitated, then nodded slowly. He reached into his equipment bag, where he kept various Earth artifacts for cultural demonstrations. His fingers closed around a small metal object. "May I approach the demonstration area?" he asked. Professor Zilvex gestured affirmatively with her upper limbs. "We've adjusted the atmospheric bubble. You may remove your helmet for 10 minutes safely." Wade stepped out, feeling the slightly heavier gravity pull at his bones. The air had a metallic taste, but was breathable. He walked to the center of the stage, intensely aware of thousands of alien eyes studying his every move. "Humans didn't evolve specialized hunting appendages," he began, feeling oddly defensive. "We weren't the strongest, fastest, or most naturally armed species on our planet." He held up a simple metal lighter. The students leaned forward, optical organs adjusting focus. "This is a modern version of humanity's most important technology," Wade explained. "Fire." He flicked the lighter, and a small flame danced in his palm. A collective gasp rippled through the amphitheater. Some students recoiled, others extended sensory organs. Fire allowed us to cook meat, which provided more calories and protein with less digestive effort. This fed our growing brains, Wade continued. It gave us light in darkness when most predators hunted. It kept dangerous animals away from our camps. He demonstrated how the flame could be transferred to other materials, lighting a small piece of paper he'd brought. The paper curled and blackened as the flames consumed it. But most importantly, Wade said, his voice dropping slightly as he smiled, fire gave us the ability to modify our environment rather than adapting to it. We didn't evolve specialized hunting tools, we created them. A soft laugh escaped his lips as he watched the alien students' reactions. Some were recording the demonstration, others were rapidly taking notes, while a few seemed genuinely alarmed by the dancing flame. With fire, we could harden wooden spears, forge metal weapons, clear hunting grounds, drive prey into traps, and eventually develop metallurgy, chemistry, and ultimately, the technology that brought us to the stars. All from understanding how to control combustion. Professor Zilvex's sensory frills rippled, and what Wade had learned was surprise. You carry the means to create destructive energy casually in your pocket? Wade extinguished the flame. Most humans do. It's so fundamental to our development that we keep it close, even now. A student with iridescent scales raised an appendage. But fire exists on many worlds. Why did only humans harness it so thoroughly? Wade shrugged. Perhaps because we needed it more desperately. Without natural weapons, we had to innovate or perish. As Wade returned to his booth, replacing his helmet, he noticed the changed atmosphere in the room. The alien students were looking at him differently, not just as an odd biological curiosity, but with a new assessment. Professor Zilvex addressed the class. What Human Anderson has demonstrated is precisely why this course exists. Different evolutionary pressures create different paths to intelligence. The hunting tools we develop reflect not just our biology, but our problem-solving approaches. She turned to Wade. Would you consent to further demonstrations of early human hunting technologies? My students would benefit greatly from understanding how a physically vulnerable species leveraged environmental control so effectively. Wade nodded. I'd be happy to arrange something more comprehensive. As the class dispersed, a tall, mantis-like student approached Wade's booth. Its translator badge identified it as Telex, a fourth-year xenoanthropology major. Human Anderson, it said, multiple eyes blinking asynchronously. I found your demonstration fascinating. Our historical records show that humans were considered a puzzling anomaly when first contacted, physically unimpressive yet advancing technologically faster than any known species. Wade smiled. We're persistent. More than persistent, Telex responded. Fire is dangerous to most life forms, yet humans not only tamed it, but built their civilization around it. My research group is studying comparative technological development. Would you consider joining us for a more detailed discussion? Before Wade could answer, an alarm blared through the amphitheater. Red lights flashed as Professor Zilvex rushed back into the room. Security breach in Laboratory Section 7, her voice echoed. All students return to dormitory units immediately. This is not a drill. Telex's sensory appendages flattened against its head. That's the Xenobiology Containment Lab. Wade felt a chill. Section 7 was where the university kept dangerous biological specimens, including some from Earth, that were strictly controlled. Professor Zilvex approached Wade's booth quickly. Mr. Anderson, we have a situation that may require human expertise. Can you accompany me to the security center? Wade nodded, gathering his equipment. As they hurried through the corridors, passing aliens of various species rushing to safety, Zilvex explained. A group of students broke into the secure specimens area. They were apparently inspired by today's presentations to examine Earth predators firsthand. Wade felt his stomach tighten. Which specimens? According to the security alert, they accessed terrarium E7. Wade stopped cold. E7 contains Australian fauna. Professor, that's extremely dangerous. Some Earth species don't just kill for food, they defend territory aggressively with venom that can be fatal even to humans. Zilvex's translator couldn't fully convey her agitation. The students believed they were prepared. They've studied Earth biology extensively. Studying isn't the same as encountering, Wade said, quickening his pace. How many students? 5. all advanced xenobiology specialists. They reached the security center where monitors displayed various sections of the station. On one screen, Wade could see 5 alien students in a sealed laboratory. They were gathered around an opened containment unit. "Can we communicate with them?" Wade asked. A security officer, a bulky reptilian with armored scales, nodded. "Audio link is active." Wade leaned toward the microphone. "This is Wade Anderson. Which specimens have you removed from containment?" One of the students, a tall insectoid with brilliant blue carapace, responded. "Human Anderson. We accessed the small mammals and arachnids. We were testing theories about Earth predator-prey dynamics." Wade felt his blood run cold. "Which specific specimens?" There was a pause. According to the label, specimens include Atrax robustus, Cincerus cafeae, and Panthera tigris. "That's impossible," Wade said, turning to Professor Zilvex. "Those aren't all small specimens. A tiger and Cape buffalo wouldn't fit in that lab." Zilvex examined the manifest. "The larger specimens are embryonic only, preserved for study. But the Atrax specimen is mature." "Atrax robustus," Wade said, his voice tight. "Sydney funnel web spider. Highly aggressive, with venom that specifically targets primates. You need to seal that lab immediately and tell me exactly where the specimen is now." The blue carapaced student responded. "The arachnid escaped containment approximately 3 minutes ago. We were attempting to observe its hunting behavior by introducing it to a controlled environment with synthetic prey." Wade rubbed his face. "These spiders don't hunt like normal predators. They're defensive and aggressive. They attack when threatened, not just for food." He scanned the video feed, looking for the distinctive dark, glossy body of the funnel web. "Can you see it?" "Negative," replied the student. "It moved with unexpected speed beneath the storage units." Wade turned to the security officer. "We need to evacuate those students and seal the lab. That spider's venom could be fatal to species with similar neurological structures to humans." Professor Zilvex's frills flattened against her head. "The laboratory decontamination protocol would kill the specimen. It's extremely rare and valuable for research. With respect, Professor, that spider is one of the deadliest creatures on Earth. If it bites someone, they'll have minutes before neurotoxic symptoms begin." The security feed suddenly showed one of the students, a gelatinous being with visible internal structures, convulsing. The others gathered around it in obvious distress. "It appears student Melvox has been injured," one reported. "Something penetrated his protective membrane." Wade felt his heart race. "That's a bite. You need to get a medical team there now. Do you have anti-venom?" Professor Zilvex consulted a database. "Our medical bay has synthetic broad-spectrum antitoxins for research purposes." "That won't be enough," Wade said. "Earth venoms are specifically evolved to target neurological systems. I have emergency medical supplies in my quarters that might help." Wade sprinted through the corridors, his environmental suit hampering his movement. He reached his quarters and grabbed his emergency medical kit, a requirement for all human personnel in off-world assignments. Inside was a vial of polyvalent antivenom and an auto-injector. When he returned to the security center, the situation had deteriorated. The gelatinous student was now completely immobile, its internal structures darkening alarmingly. "I need to get in there," Wade said. Professor Zilvex shook her elongated head. "The atmosphere in that lab is now too toxic for you." The students released a defensive chemical when they detected the attack. Wade looked at the medical kit in his hands. "Then we need to talk them through administering the antivenom." He leaned toward the communication panel. "Listen carefully. The spider's venom attacks the nervous system. In the medical kit I'm sending through the transfer tube, there's an auto-injector with antivenom. You need to deliver it as close to the bite site as possible." The security officer operated a small transport tube that connected to the lab. Wade placed his medical kit inside, and they watched as it was delivered to the quarantined students. On the screen, one of the students, a crystalline being with visible light pulses running through its structure, examined the kit. "Human Anderson, we cannot determine which is the injection device. The cylindrical object with the orange cap," Wade explained. "Remove the cap, place the flat end against Melvox near where the spider bit him, and press the button on the opposite end." The students followed his instructions. For several tense minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then, gradually, The gelatinous students' internal structures began to return to their normal coloration. Life signs stabilizing, reported the security officer, monitoring the lab's biological sensors. Wade exhaled in relief, but the danger wasn't over. The spider is still in there. It's likely hiding in a dark corner or crevice. They build funnel-shaped webs and attack anything that disturbs them. Professor Zilvex consulted with the security team. We can attempt to locate it with thermal imaging, but capturing it without harm will be difficult. I have an idea, Wade said. He leaned toward the communication panel again. Students, I need you to carefully gather any flammable materials in the lab: paper, fabric, anything that will burn but not produce toxic smoke. The alien students exchanged uncertain looks but began collecting items. Now, place them in small piles around the perimeter of the room, but don't light them yet, Wade instructed. Professor Zilvex turned to Wade. You're planning to use fire? Wade nodded. Most arachnids are extremely sensitive to heat and smoke. We can herd it toward a capture container by strategically lighting small, controlled fires to direct its movement. Under Wade's guidance, the students arranged the combustible materials and then lit them using laboratory equipment. The small fires created a pattern that left only one path open toward an empty specimen container. Watch carefully, Wade advised. It will try to escape the heat and smoke. Within minutes, the dark spider scuttled into view, moving rapidly away from the nearest fire. The students maneuvered the capture container into position and with surprising dexterity, managed to trap the aggressive arachnid. Once the spider was secured and the fires extinguished, Wade allowed himself to relax slightly. Now we need to get your friend to medical for further treatment. The antivenom will help, but they'll need supportive care. As the emergency response team arrived to transport the injured student and secure the laboratory, Professor Zilvex approached Wade. That was impressively handled, she said. You used a primitive technology fire, yet applied it with sophisticated strategy. Wade shrugged. Humans have been using fire to control dangerous animals for thousands of years. It's instinctive for us. Perhaps, Professor Zilvex replied. But what I found most interesting was your calm approach. Many species would have simply destroyed the threat. The spider isn't evil, it's just doing what evolution designed it to do, Wade said. On Earth, we've learned to respect dangerous creatures rather than eliminate them whenever possible. The following day, Wade was summoned to the university's administrative center. The incident had apparently caught the attention of the highest levels of the academic hierarchy. Chancellor Drovax, a massive being composed of what appeared to be interconnected crystalline nodes, received Wade in a chamber specially adapted for multi-species meetings. Human Anderson, the Chancellor's melodic voice resonated through the translator. Your actions yesterday prevented what could have been a serious diplomatic incident. The students involved have been disciplined for their unauthorized experiment, but they also report that the experience was highly educational. Wade shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I'm just glad everyone survived, Chancellor. Indeed. Student Melvox is recovering well. The Chancellor's crystals pulsed with soft light. However, this incident has highlighted something important. Our xenobiology program studies Earth species extensively, but there appears to be a gap in understanding how humans interact with their own dangerous fauna. Wade nodded. Earth evolved some uniquely dangerous creatures. Humans had to develop specific strategies for coexisting with them. Precisely my point, Chancellor Drovax continued. I am proposing a new addition to our curriculum, a practical course on human adaptation strategies, with you as the primary instructor. Wade blinked in surprise. Me? I'm not an academic, Chancellor. I'm just a cultural liaison. Yet you demonstrated exactly what we wish to teach: practical knowledge applied with cultural context. Your use of fire as both tool and weapon exemplifies the human approach to problem solving. The Chancellor's crystals shifted to a deeper blue. Consider this. While our students presented hunting tools that their species evolved or developed over millennia, you showed a technology that humans mastered and applied to countless situations. That versatility is precisely what makes human thought patterns valuable to study. Wade considered the proposal. He'd come to the university expecting to be an observer, perhaps occasionally answering questions about Earth culture. Teaching an actual course would be challenging, but also an unprecedented opportunity to improve interspecies understanding. What exactly would this course cover? He asked. Practical demonstrations of how humans adapted to Earth's varied environments without specialized biological features, the Chancellor explained. From your control of fire to your use of tools, your species found ways to thrive despite being, forgive my directness, physically unremarkable. Wade couldn't help but laugh softly. When you put it that way, how can I refuse? The course was scheduled to begin the following week. Wade spent days preparing, gathering materials, and planning demonstrations that would effectively show how humans had overcome their biological limitations. On the morning of the first class, Wade entered a smaller amphitheater, where 60 students from various species waited. Among them, he recognized Telex and several others from the hunting tool presentations. To his surprise, the recovering Melvox was also present, its gelatinous form still showing faint traces of the spider's attack. Welcome to Applied Human Adaptation Strategies, Wade began, feeling oddly nervous. In this course, we'll explore how humans used creativity and tool-making to compensate for our physical limitations. He gestured to a table covered with various simple objects: a stone hand axe, a bow and arrow, a fishing net, and at the center, materials for creating fire. We'll start at the beginning with fire, Wade said. But unlike my brief demonstration last week, today we'll actually create fire using only materials available to early humans. He picked up two sticks, one with a flat base, the other with a pointed end. This is a fire drill, one of the oldest methods humans use to create fire through friction. Wade positioned the pointed stick vertically on the flat base and began rotating it rapidly between his palms. The students watched intently as he applied pressure, creating friction that eventually produced smoke from the point of contact. The key is persistent pressure and speed, Wade explained, continuing the motion despite his arms beginning to tire. Early humans needed to develop endurance for this technique. After several minutes of concentrated effort, a small ember formed in the wood dust that had collected. Wade carefully transferred this ember to a prepared bundle of dry grass and gently blew on it. The ember grew, and suddenly small flames appeared, consuming the tinder. The alien students reacted with various expressions of what Wade had learned to recognize as astonishment across different physiologies. Sensory organs extended, appendages raised, and colors shifted across membranes and exoskeletons. From this simple beginning, Wade continued, feeding the small fire with progressively larger sticks. Humans gained advantages that changed our evolutionary path forever. We could cook food, increasing caloric intake. We could stay warm in cold environments. We could deter predators and illuminate darkness. Telex raised an appendage. Human Anderson, our historical records indicate that fire was also destructive to human settlements. Was the risk balanced by the benefit? Wade nodded. An excellent question. Fire is a tool, but also a constant danger. Humans had to develop complex social structures partly to manage fire safely, assigned fire watchers, community firefighting techniques, and eventually, dedicated fire management professionals. Another student, a spherical being that floated slightly above its seat, pulsed with light as it asked, did control of fire directly lead to human dominance on Earth, or were there intermediate technologies? Fire enabled other technologies, Wade explained. With fire, we could harden wooden spears, create adhesives for compound tools, and eventually smelt metals. Each step built on the previous one. Wade spent the next hour demonstrating various primitive human technologies, all dependent, in some way, on the mastery of fire. He showed how clay could be hardened into pottery, how certain rocks could be heat-treated to improve flint knapping, and how metal ores could be processed. As the class concluded, Wade noticed a change in how the students were observing him. Their initial curiosity had transformed into something resembling respect. For next class, Wade said, we'll examine how humans adapted hunting strategies for different environments. Please review the materials on early human migration patterns. As the students filed out, Professor Zilvex entered the amphitheater. She observed the remains of Wade's demonstrations with her sensory frills extended. Impressive first session, she said. The students are already discussing applications of fire-based technologies to problems on their own worlds. Wade began cleaning up his materials. I'm just showing them the basics. Nothing they couldn't learn from historical databases. But seeing you create fire with your hands made it real for them, Zilvex responded. Many species find the concept of controlling combustion to be alarming rather than intuitive. Your comfort with the flames speaks volumes about human psychology. Wade paused, considering this. I never thought about it that way. Fire is so fundamental to human development that we take it for granted. Precisely why this course is valuable, Zilvex said. The Galactic University has extensive data on Earth biology, geology, and history, but understanding how humans think requires seeing how you approach problems. Over the following weeks, Wade's course became unexpectedly popular. Additional students requested to join, and several faculty members began attending as observers. Wade demonstrated primitive hunting techniques, shelter construction, agricultural methods, and early medicine, all connected by the thread of human adaptability. One morning, Wade arrived to find Chancellor Drovax waiting with Professor Zilvex. The crystalline administrator pulsed with formal patterns that Wade had learned indicated a ceremonial occasion. Human Anderson, the Chancellor began. Your course has generated significant interest beyond our university. The Intergalactic Education Council has requested permission to record and distribute your demonstrations to other learning institutions. Wade felt a surge of pride mixed with trepidation. I'm honored, but I'm not sure I'm qualified to represent all of human adaptation strategies. I'm not an anthropologist or historian. Yet you embody the practical knowledge, Professor Zilvex said. Your instinctive understanding of these technologies makes the demonstrations authentic in a way academic presentations cannot match. The Chancellor's crystals shifted to a formal configuration. Additionally, the Council has approved funding for an expanded program. We would like to establish an Earth Technologies Research Center here at the university, with you as its director. Wade stared in astonishment. Director? But I'm just a cultural liaison. My assignment here is temporary. Which is why we are offering you a permanent position, the Chancellor continued. Your demonstration with the funnel web spider showed the practical value of human problem-solving approaches. Several species have already expressed interest in adapting fire management techniques for handling dangerous biological specimens. Wade needed time to process this offer. What had begun as a simple presentation had somehow evolved into a career opportunity he'd never imagined. May I have some time to consider this? He asked. Of course, the Chancellor replied. However, there is one more matter to discuss. The students involved in the laboratory incident have completed a research project they wish to present to you. They believe it demonstrates their understanding of human adaptation principles. Later that day, Wade met with the 5 students who had released the funnel web spider. They had fully recovered from the incident and seemed eager to show him their project. Human Anderson, the blue carapace student, began. After studying your demonstrations and reviewing Earth's technological history, we developed what we believe is an improved hunting tool based on human principles. They unveiled a device that resembled a combination of a net launcher and a controlled flame projector. We integrated the concept of fire as a herding tool with traditional capture technologies from various species. This allows for the safe containment of dangerous specimens without harm to either the collector or the specimen. Wade examined the device with genuine interest. It was cleverly designed, incorporating heating elements that could create a temperature gradient to guide a target organism toward a capture mechanism. This is impressive, Wade said. You've taken the basic concept I demonstrated and refined it significantly. Melvox, the gelatinous student who had been bitten by the spider, pulsed with what Wade had learned was their expression of enthusiasm. Your method saved my life, Human Anderson. We realized that the principle could be applied to many xenobiology collection challenges. The students demonstrated their device using a harmless specimen, a small, skittering creature that resembled a cross between a crab and a hummingbird. The heating elements created a path of least resistance that guided the creature directly into the capture chamber, where it was secured without injury. We've already submitted the design to the xenobiology department, Telex explained. They believe it could significantly reduce collection-related injuries and specimen loss. Wade felt a strange sense of fulfillment. These students had taken a simple human technology fire and adapted it through their own unique perspectives into something new and valuable. I think you've just demonstrated exactly why the Chancellor wants to establish this research center, Wade said. Different species approaching problems from different evolutionary backgrounds can create solutions none would develop alone. As the semester concluded, Wade found himself standing once again in the main amphitheater where he had first demonstrated fire to the hunting tools class. This time, however, he was addressing not just students but a delegation from the Intergalactic Education Council. Human adaptation strategies weren't superior to those evolved by other species, Wade explained, standing beside a carefully controlled demonstration fire. They were simply different, born of our particular evolutionary constraints. Humans couldn't outrun predators, so we created barriers. We couldn't survive cold with our bodies, so we harnessed fire. We couldn't defeat larger animals with natural weapons, so we created artificial ones. He gestured to the flames. Fire wasn't just a tool, it was a multiplier that enabled all our other technologies. But what I've learned during my time teaching here is that every species has their equivalent, that fundamental adaptation that shaped their development of technology and culture. The council representatives, representing 12 different species from across the galaxy, observed with various sensory organs. Wade had learned to recognize their expressions of interest. By studying these different approaches, Wade continued, we can develop technologies and solutions that no single species would conceive alone. The fire-hurting capture device created by my students is just one example of what's possible when we combine perspectives. As Wade concluded his presentation, Chancellor Drovax approached the center of the amphitheater. The Galactic University is pleased to announce the establishment of the Comparative Adaptation Research Center, dedicated to studying how different evolutionary paths lead to unique problem-solving approaches. The Chancellor's crystals pulsed with formal patterns. Human Wade Anderson has accepted our invitation to serve as the center's first director, where he will continue to demonstrate how seemingly simple technologies can have profound applications across species boundaries. Wade stepped forward, still somewhat amazed at how his simple demonstration of fire had led to this moment. I accept this position with humility and excitement. When I first showed you fire and laughed at your reactions, it wasn't out of superiority, it was from the joy of sharing something so fundamental to human experience. He ignited a small flame in his palm once more, watching as the alien delegates observed with their various sensory organs. This flame represents not just human innovation, but the potential of cross-species collaboration. What one species takes for granted, another finds revolutionary. In those gaps lie opportunities for us all. The flame flickered in Wade's hand, casting dancing shadows across the amphitheater. As he looked out at the assembled aliens beings from worlds circling distant stars, with biologies and evolutionary histories utterly unlike his own, Wade felt a profound connection. They were different in almost every way imaginable, yet united by curiosity and the drive to understand. Wade closed his hand, extinguishing the flame. Fire taught humans that we could control our environment rather than merely survive within it. That lesson belongs to everyone now. As the delegates applauded in their various ways, some vibrating appendages, others pulsing with bioluminescence, Wade knew that his journey had just begun. From a simple demonstration of humanity's most primitive technology had come understanding, and from understanding, connection. The Earth Technologies Research Center would become his legacy, not just teaching aliens about human adaptations, but learning from their evolutionary solutions as well. Together, they would forge new paths of discovery, illuminated by the same flame that had guided humanity out of darkness thousands of years ago. And in that moment, Wade Anderson understood why fire had been so precious to his ancestors. It wasn't just heat or light or protection. It was possibility, the first technology that showed humans they could reshape their world. Now, that same fire would light the way to a future where different species could learn from each other's evolutionary journeys. Wade smiled, thinking of how far a simple flame had carried humanity from huddling in caves to traveling between stars. As alien students gathered around him, eager to learn more about human adaptation strategies, Wade knew he had found his place in the universe not as a conquering explorer, but as a teacher, sharing the flame of human innovation with the galaxy.